Welcome, tennis fans, to the 36th episode of Tennis Traverse, Exploring the Game, the podcast that delves into the heart of the tennis world. I'm your host, Ivy J, and in today's episode, I'll be discussing the Madrid Open. Before we begin, please follow all of my social medias, that is Instagram and Twitter, using @TennisTraverse, that is @TennisTraverse. And I know I'm literally completely dead on Twitter. I'm so sorry. I don't know. I just have a lot of schoolwork, which I will update you guys on a bit later, but I just have a lot of stuff to do for the past few weeks. But I promise I will be active once French Open starts. If you're listening on YouTube, comment, like, and subscribe. I also do want to make a point about this. I had an issue with YouTube uploading. It just keeps on, I couldn't save it, but I fixed the last episode. So I think if you're listening to this episode right now on YouTube, I think it's all up to date, so don't worry. And if you're listening on other streaming platforms, please rate my show. And let's get right into today's episode. So I want to update you guys just briefly about how I just haven't been active. I don't want to apologize that I haven't really been putting a lot of effort into interacting with you guys. It's because I have APs coming up. So APs is I think it's called advanced placement, and it's basically, as high school students, we have to take college courses to get credit, and it's a high level advanced course, and I have some different courses I have to prepare for, and I have my test in I think the first and second week of May, so I'm not really gonna be active, but I don't want to miss an upload for you guys. So these episodes might not be as long as they were before, but maybe they can. I'm not sure, but I just want to say that that's one thing. And then the other thing is, I've been saying this so many times, but I have a newsletter, and it just contains a sneak peek into the new episode. And I do want to shout someone out. I don't want to misread your handle, but it's @Amatursky, and he sent me a really, really sweet message about subscribing to my newsletter and how he loves my podcast. I just want to thank you so much for that. And he's also from Belgium, so that's really cool. And I don't know, I think that he didn't receive my newsletter, but I think we fixed the issue. So if you guys have any concerns about not receiving my newsletter, just don't hesitate to contact me. You can either reach me through Substack, or you can just shoot me a DM on Instagram and Twitter, or just wherever you can find me. And yeah, let's just get right into today's episode. Okay, so before I want to talk about Madrid, I want to talk about Barcelona, because last week we left when I was predicting the final between Casper and Tsitsipas, and I also talked about the demise of the Big Four, and I think that's something I still want to mention this episode, but I want to talk about the finals match first. So I was pleasantly surprised, because I don't think I talked about this a lot, but Casper, he beat Tsitsipas in a final, and it was, I think, one of the best performances he had, because before this he had never won a title above 250, so that means that the maximum points he earned in a tournament is 250, and this time he earned 500, and it's a champion tournament. So sorry, not a champion tournament, but he became the champion of this tournament, and he's never done that for a tournament above the level of 250. So I think it's a really step for him, and it's definitely a huge step up for his confidence. He'll for sure feel much more confident. So guys, I'm sorry, but there's a car honking in the background. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but sorry, it's kind of bothering me. I hope it's not bothering you guys. Okay, but let's get back to the match. I think the one thing that set him apart from looking at the stats is just first serve, because Casper had an 80% first serve. That's actually really good, considering that the match was super close. The score was 7-5 and 6-3. I found a link if I can to the finals, because Casper played some amazing points in it. So if I can't find a link, please don't hesitate to check it out. Okay. And now I want to talk about Madrid Open. So Madrid Open is basically one of the big tournaments that both the WTA and the ATP have, and it's a Masters tournament or an ATP 1000 tournament. So, the WTA 1000 tournament. So it's like the highest levels of tournaments except for Grand Slams. So this is like a huge tournament, and before I'll probably do like a draw of all the names written down. I'll probably put it on my newsletter, but I'm sorry I didn't do that this week. Part of it is because, as I said before, of my schoolwork. The second reason was that, well, I wanted to do it a few days ago, but I didn't have time, and it just didn't start on a day where I felt like I could do it. Like, by the time I wanted to do it, a lot of the results are already out, so I'm like, there's no point of doing it. So I didn't really predict the whole draw, but I'm gonna just talk today about some matches that happened before, and then I want to just predict and talk about just some random things. Okay, so now first let's just talk about women's singles. So I want to talk about Mira Andreeva first. There's a lot of match. If you just go search up her name, I think there's a lot of matches that she played that's really close. The first one she played was against Taylor Townsend, and I watched, I believe, like the last set of her match, and to be honest, I feel like at the beginning of like her whole start of her professional career, well, not the start of her, like on tour, on the WTA tour, I felt like she was just encountering success after successes. Like, even though she occasionally will have a loss, but she often just goes really, really far into a tournament, and I think that's a really good thing for her and her confidence. However, I feel like this season, obviously because she's been playing more and more and entering more tournaments, that she hasn't really been doing as well as she would have liked to, but at the same time, I think she's performing really well because she beat, as I said before, Taylor Townsend in the first round and Linda Noskova in the second, and she's playing Marketa Vondrousova tomorrow, which is Sunday. So yeah, I think someone to definitely look out for is Mira Andreeva. And I also want to talk about Naomi Osaka, because Naomi played in Open de Rune, which is basically a 250 tournament, and I believe, and I was confused because I thought she was gonna win this, like, she's not gonna lose in the first round. I thought she was gonna, like, go pretty deep, maybe to the semifinals, but she actually lost, and I think it was really surprising. But to be honest, her opponent at that tournament, Martina Trevisan, is an incredible clay court player, so we really can't blame Naomi for losing. Maybe it's just me finding excuses for her, but I would say that she performed well in Madrid. Like, even though she lost in the second round, but she finally have a win on clay against Greet Minin in the first round with a score of 6-4, 6-1. I'll try to find a link. And then her second round match was also super close, because I feel like it was just a great mental match for her, even though she lost, because she lost that first set 2-6, and then she came back in a second, which I didn't expect. And even though I feel like the only problem I had was with the deciding set, because she lost the final set 5-7, so that means she got broken, was tied 5-all, so that was kind of, I think part of it is definitely the pressure that was built up on her. But apart from that, I think this is a tournament that Naomi can learn a lot from. And what else I want to talk about? I also want to talk about just probably Aryna Sabalenka, because we know that her ex-partner passed, and I feel like this season really means a lot to her because of what happened. So I feel like she's performing consistently well, despite not performing that well in the previous tournaments, but that's totally, like, okay, and that's totally normal. But I think she's trying to find her footing again. And I also want to talk about Ons Jabeur. Like, I feel like Ons Jabeur is sort of the same, because obviously she hasn't had the best year. Like, her year is nothing compared to her year like like last year, for example, because let's just go over her year. So in Australia, she lost in the second round, and then she got bageled against Mira Andreeva in the second round. And then in Abu Dhabi, she also lost. She lost in the quarterfinals, but it's the second round. And then in Qatar, she lost in the first round. In India, she also lost in the first round. In Miami, she lost 3 first round matches in a row. Well, she had a bye, but still. And then in Charleston, she lost in the first round. In Stuttgart, she made it to the second round but lost. In Madrid, she's finally making it to the third round, and even though both of the matches she played were really tough, but she managed to win. And she's playing against Ostapenko on Monday, so that's going to be a really highlight of a match. So please make sure to check that out if you can. I'm not going to leave a link because by the time my newsletter come out, this will be my newsletter is going to come out before the match is played, and my podcast too. So if you guys want, if you happen to listen to this on a Tuesday or Wednesday, just go back and search up on Shabar versus Ostapenko, and I'm pretty sure that the WTA channel will have their match as a highlight, so you guys can go check that out. Okay, I also want to talk about the last thing I want to talk about on the women's side is Maria Sakkari. The reason I wanted to talk about Maria Sakkari is because I'm really surprised at her performing consistently well, and I don't think it has happened ever. I'm probably going to do the same thing. I'm going to go through her year. So in Australia, it's when she still had her former coach. She lost in the second round, Abu Dhabi as well. Qatar, I believe she changed the coach, and she played in the round of 32 against Linda Noskova in a really, really close match. In Dubai, she lost in the second. In Indian Wells, she actually made it to the final, and that's where her consistent runs are starting to come. In Miami, she made it to the quarterfinal. In Charleston, she made it to the semifinal. And in Madrid, she's making it to the round of 16. And I think before, I really didn't think much of her ranking. For example, for a lot of players such as Iga Swiatek, when I think of her ranking, I think she deserves it. I'm not saying that Maria doesn't deserve it, but just her way of playing, and I think her mental fortitude with her ranking doesn't speak well with me, but I think it's finally to sort of solidify, if that makes sense, because she beat a lot of tough opponents. Her second round, because she had 5 first rounds, so her second round opponent in Madrid is Donna Vekic, and she beat her 6-3, 6-2. That's really impressive considering Donna is an incredible player. She beat Sloane Stephens in the third round of 32, 6-1, 6-3, and she's awaiting Bia Hadid Maya in the third round, so that's going to be, round of 16, so that's going to be an incredible match. That's mostly I want to talk about, but I'm sorry that I didn't talk about specific matches, but I just didn't spend a lot of time on tennis this past few weeks because of studying, but there's a lot of good matches. I don't have them linked, but if you just go to WTA, the website, I'll leave a link to their YouTube channel, and if you just go to their YouTube channel, you'll find a lot of matches, and I think this way it's better for you guys because you guys can find matches that you think are close, or just find matches about the players I mentioned, and it's going to be a good match for sure. Okay. Now let's talk about the ATP side. So I want to talk about Rafa Nadal first because I mentioned I am going to talk about how the Big Four. I think this is another attempt from Rafa from sort of coming back, and I think this is going actually quite well, to everyone's surprise. Well, not to everyone's surprise, but to my surprise, because I feel like his pattern is just training, and then he beats some qualifier, and then he loses to seeded player, and then he's injured, and he comes back, and he does that all over again. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing for sure, because I know he really wants to win, and that's all he could do because of his body's limitation, but he's playing 2 consecutive tournaments so far, and that's incredible. In Barcelona, he beat Flavio Cobolli in the first round, and then he lost to Alex de Minaur in his second round with the score of 5-7, 1-6. And the funny thing is they're playing on the court because the court's named after him. So the court's called Pista Rafa Nadal, and they're literally play on, like, Rafa's play on Rafa. That's, I don't know, it's funny. Okay. And then in Madrid, he actually revenged. He played against this 16-year-old Darwin Blanche in the first round, and he completely destroyed him with the score of 6-1, 6-0. And then he played against Alex de Minaur, which is his opponent from the previous tournament, Barcelona. However, Nadal came out on top, actually, with the score of 8-6 in a tiebreak in the first, and then 6-3 in the second. And he awaits Pedro Cachin. And I think Cachin is a clay court specialist, while so is Rafa. So I think, in my opinion, he's going to advance beyond Cachin, and he's going to maybe go deep in this tournament. And even if I did a bracket, to be completely honest, I would still put Alex de Minaur over Rafa Nadal. So for Rafa Nadal to beat Alex de Minaur, I think it's a great sign that he's coming back. Because I feel like he's finally beating someone who is worthy of a challenge for him. And I also want to talk about Casper Ruud, because I talked about how basically he won his first 500 title, and I think that it's going to just boost his confidence tremendously. I think from boosting his confidence just by winning that 500 title, he's gonna perform well in this tournament. And I just honestly, I don't want him to not live up. Like, I personally don't care if he loses in the first or few round, but I just don't want him to receive hate if he loses in the first round or like the first few rounds. But I think he's gonna be able to handle it. And when I was scrolling through Instagram, I saw that he was considered one of the big favorites to win this tournament. That's actually kind of rare, because he's never like the favorite in a tournament. So I think it's a really good thing that people are starting to realize how much of a threat he can be after he proved himself. Okay, and he's actually playing a match right now, and he won that first set 6-4. And I believe they were like serving till 4-all, and then Casper served, so it was 5-4, and then he broke his opponent. His opponent is, I'm gonna butcher the name, sorry, Milmor Kecmanovic. Okay. I also want to talk about just a quick thing, which is what was it? Okay, Novak Djokovic withdrawing. I mean, it is well, he's never played in Madrid for such a long time, so I think it's expected. And then I want to talk about Daniil Medvedev, because I think I said this in previous episodes, but Daniil have a funny history on clay. Like, I think he is what you will call a hard court specialist, because he loves hard court. And I remember this because I think I just love Daniil's, like, his whole demeanor, his personality is just really quirky to me. And I don't know, I think I saw this video of him, like, saying I love clay, and saying, like, he's really funny about his attitude towards clay. It's like he just hates clay, but he actually won a huge title on clay, I believe, a year ago. So I think, but still he lost in like the first or second round of Roland Garros. But at the same time, I think from him achieving some success in clay, this will definitely fuel him for this tournament. And I guess that's all for today's episode. I'm so sorry that this one isn't as long as the other ones, but I gave you guys a warning, and I really hope you guys enjoyed. I will come back not stronger. Next week it'll probably be the same, but then the upcoming 2 weeks are gonna be I'm gonna be kind of dying from APs, and then I'll come back really strong on the 18th, and you guys are gonna hear a lot of tennis. And I also do want to have some special guests on my episode, because a lot of my friends were expressing how they want to come on, even though they have no experiences in tennis whatsoever, but they just wanted to come on. And I don't know, maybe I can like make them explain tennis rules, because they know tennis rules. And I feel like if you're a starter to tennis, having someone who really doesn't know much about tennis explain tennis rules to you is like really easy to understand. So yeah, I guess that's all. Thank you so much for listening. Please follow all of my social medias if you haven't already. Again, that's at Tennis Traverse and at Tennis Traverse. Okay, if you're listening on YouTube, comment, like, and subscribe. If you're listening on other streaming platforms, please rate my show, and please subscribe to my newsletter if you want. This is like sort of a low-key thing that I'm doing. It's not going to be really out there like this podcast. It's just going to be sort of my like the fans that loves me the best. Like, they're just gonna be sort of, it's like a little secret, and I'm not gonna promote it as I am currently. So yeah, just if you guys haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.